Hi, folks. I'm Mike, and I hope you're well. Welcome to another edition of Fix My Mix. I think this is number 15, although we've had a couple of weird editions which I didn't number. But anyway, welcome, and thank you for being here. If you're in the chat already, I see a few of you are already here. I'll be saying hi in a moment, especially to those of you who have just come over from Pete Johns over there. He's been having a great interview over there. Really interesting stuff. Thank you for coming straight over here. I have a special edition of For Today's Show. I'll explain what that is in a moment. But first of all, I am going to say thank you to our sponsor here, DistroKid. We'll be talking about them throughout the show. And if you do sign up with DistroKid, follow the link in the description. That's this one up here. And you will get a little discount. And it's well worth it. They're cheap anyway. And you don't have to pay any extra. And I will get a little kickback. So all good. Everyone's a winner. As I say, it is a special edition. We'll talk about what that's all about in a moment. But I first of all want to say hi to the good folk in the chat. I see some regulars in here, of course. Genre Music never fails us. She's always here. Also, another regular, Danny Gable. Nice to see you, Danny. We have Mark in here, and we have Pete Johns. He's come straight over. This man just does not like to rest, does he? He's always working the whole time. Great show over there today. Actually, really enjoyed watching the end of that. And of course, we have the wonderful Doug Kidder in here. He's usually the first one to arrive these days. It's good timing for you now, isn't it, Doug? Thank you for everything you're doing in the community, you and my other moderators, including Mimo Japan, who I haven't seen here. He's been very busy, actually, to be honest with you. He's been busy releasing a video with Mark Fahey, who is also here. Nice to see you in here, Mark, with their song that they collaborated on. Also nice to see Craig. Hi, Craig. How you doing? And I think I saw one of our previous, somebody who's been featured on the show previously. Oh, it's gone here, but Kevin, I think, is here as well, who was on the show 2 or 3 weeks ago. Or his music was on the show 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we've got 3 tracks lined up. We're going to be listening to their mixes together. We're going to have some fun with that. But I decided that today I wouldn't have any guests on the show because they talk so much. Honestly, my guests, you can't get a word in sometimes and you can't get the points across. But anyway, they just sort of, you're trying to talk about mixing seriously, and then they're just there and then they just talk. Oh, hang on. Oh my God. Oh shit. I forgot. I gave one of them a link. Oh my God.
Yeah, what a lovely intro. What a lovely intro, Mike. Thank you very much. Nice to feel appreciated.
You should have heard what I said about you on last week's show. I hadn't intended to have any guests, and I was having a chat with my good friend Ricky T. Brown here earlier. Well, it was earlier this evening for him. It was very early in the morning, and he said, "Would you like me to pop in?" I said, "You know what? Yeah, let's do that." Because I was a little bit concerned it might just be me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, if I'd known what you was going to say, I'd have left you to it, mate. Yeah. On your Jack Jones.
But I think you're going to be able to take part brilliantly in what I've planned for today. A little bit of we normally have chat in between the songs, but this is going to be a little bit more constructive, we could say, because I've got a plan to talk about 3 mix tips, Ricky. These are things that I kind of wish I'd known before I started mixing. And hopefully I think they're fairly direct pieces of advice that people can take away with them and put them into action right away. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to give your wise words of input as well.
If I can. If I can.
I'm sure you can. And by the way, thank you as well, Ricky, for doing this, because what time is it there now?
It is 5 minutes past 1 in the morning.
Do you know, I was apologising to Patrick Baird from GarageBand Guide yesterday, because I was saying since I've started having these shows at a regular time, it rather excludes people in the UK and Europe from joining the show. Not just viewers, but my guests. You know, you are such a soldier, aren't you? You've been on the show like four times now, when it's been like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
Does it mess up your day afterwards?
No, the truth is, I'm normally still up about this time, so,
Ah,
yeah,
a
it's
true
I'm not
musician.
keeping myself awake to do this, no.
Oh, well, thank you anyway.
That's my
So
pleasure.
the first thing that I wanted to speak about before we get into our first song, and this may be food for thought for the first song, in fact, who knows? My first mix tip is about balance. Now, this seems fairly obvious, doesn't it? We want to hear things that, where things seem like they're at the right level in terms of volume. And I feel that people worry about this a lot if they're beginners, and they sort of think that, oh God, that's going to take a lot of practice and hard work. But I have a slightly differing opinion to that. I think that if you're an adult, you've actually been preparing for this for many, many years. You've had many, many years of practice of listening to commercial music where generally things are well balanced. You probably, when you go to see, say, a local musician at a local bar, walk in right away and go, oh, God, vocals are a bit quiet, aren't they? Or the lead guitarist is a bit loud. Most of us actually instinctively have an appreciation of when things are in balance. And then when we come to mix our own music, all that years of experience we've had of listening to music which is in balance seems to go out the window. And um, I guess a well-known phenomenon, and what I want to talk about with this is we lack objectivity. Why do we lack objectivity? Because we've just been tracking the song for days or weeks or what have you, and we've been hearing it a lot. And then the longer we mix for, and I hear people in the community telling me that they spent weeks or months on a mix. The alarm bells start to ring for me when people say that to me, to be honest with you. But we do lose objectivity quite quickly. My theory is, Ricky, and I'll let you either nod or shake your head. My theory is we lose objectivity after about 40 minutes, probably, something like that. It's not after a week or a few days. When you're listening to the same thing over and over again, on loop and different sections of it, you very, very quickly start to second guess and lose objectivity. So my particular trick, and there's no right or wrongs in mixing, as we know, you've got to find your own way. But my particular thing, which I only discovered later, was to mix very, very quickly. Was to not think about it, just push those faders up and push them around and just say to yourself, simple sentences, vocals too loud, down a bit. Snare drums not loud enough, push it up a bit. Whatever it is, think quickly, respond quickly to your instincts. But, and here's the reason why, for me, it still takes sort of weeks, months. No, it takes a while, is that in order to do that, in order to work quickly, you have to be very organized. And I hate to, this is not very rock and roll, but I'm going to tell you now that this is just the truth. If you want to work quickly with your mix, which I think you should, you've got to be prepared. Your tracks have got to be named. Coloring's helpful. If you've got a something like Cakewalk where you can put an image of each track in, that's visually you can see, oh, it's a guitar or a drum. They do that on GarageBand as well, and I think Logic as well. You can put little icons in there. Then use those things. Do your routing. So if you prepare with some routing, so if you think a number of things are going to go to a particular bus, get that prepared, get that done. Get your edits done. Get your edits done first before you start mixing. Okay, get rid of the dead parts of it, the clicks and pops that you don't want, all that stuff. Clip gain. Get that done as well. If you look at, for example, vocals are very typical for this, but it can be any instrument. If you've got bits of the vocal passage which were much quieter than the other, or bits which are louder, get some sort of balance before you start, because otherwise you're going to be riding that fader all the time, trying to get that mix right, and that's going to confuse you. If you do a whole bunch of preparation like this, and you're really well organized with your mix, then I think for most music, you can get a static mix in a very, very, very quick time. Now, I'm not talking about the refined parts of EQing and, pulling out parts more subtly with compression and EQ. I'm just talking about basic balance of your mix. That's my first tip. Be organized, prepare prepare beforehand, like I did, obviously,
Yeah.
and do it quickly. Spend about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, then walk away. Forget it. Walk away. Make yourself a cup of coffee. Do something different. Listen to some different music. Come back again at some other point. And then anything you do instinctually and quickly. You won't be able to do that if you're not organised. If you're going, which track was it again? Which the bass is? Oh, I didn't really label that track. It's a bass, I think, that one. No, you can't work like that. Don't do it. Be organised. Be a square.
Yeah.
Ricky, that was a lot of waffle, wasn't it? Anything? Do you disagree with that, or do you agree with it?
No,
What's your
I
experience?
don't. Yeah, I mean, just like yourself, if you wind the clock back a bit and thought about how you worked, you know, a decade ago, let's say,
Mm,
um, yeah, I was less organized then than I am now. So the steps that you've underlined there, absolutely, that's pretty much what I do now. Um, it's only that the actual mix part. Yeah, I can't mix fast. I just can't. Um, yeah, I'll work on it for a while, and then I think it's sounding good, and then I'll leave it alone. I come back and say, "No, that's all wrong. I have to do it again." So I eventually get there, but
I guess what I'm
it's
saying is
it's
it as your experience of being on this show, for example,
yeah.
right, is that you listen to a song and
Mhm.
the guests on my show, folks, by the way, have never heard these songs before when they come on,
Sure.
and then
Mm.
within a few seconds of hearing those songs,
Exactly.
they offer you advice, right? And
Mm.
they'll spot things very, very quickly. And I know a lot of people follow up with them afterwards, in fact, and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, can you help me some more?" My poor old guest. Uh,
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
but you know as soon as you hear. Now, if you imagine yourself, Ricky, rather than just being able to dispense that advice, you had some faders in front of you and you could adjust that right away. Now, there's an idea for a show, isn't it? If you could adjust that
Mm,
right away, do you
mm.
see what I mean? That would be your
Yeah.
instinct just working in that moment. And that's what I'm trying to suggest to people is trust
Yeah,
that.
sure.
You
Mm.
probably most people, I think, have a sort of a decent idea. Anyway, that's food for thought. I've got two other tips coming up which actually sort of follow on, relate to that in some way. Let's have a listen, though, Ricky, to our first song.
Okay.
This week, interestingly, somebody's sent me a song which is in 3/4. Having made a video recently about how we don't use
Yeah.
enough time signatures in
Mhm.
music. And then dropped into my inbox was this song in 3/4. I'm going to let you read out the person's name here, Ricky. I hadn't planned to let you read
Here
it
we
out,
go.
but
Ah! The artist is Reread, and what bloody hell, I can't even see that. And the song's called Isaan Waltz.
I like
I'm
that.
so
I think
sorry.
it's Isaan, but I only knew that because I've listened to the song and he pronounces it in the song. So, but
Isaan,
anyway,
yeah, okay.
so not many notes on this song. In fact, the only thing that the artist Reread put in the email to me was, "I wrote an easy listening song, 3/4 waltz
Okay.
using Cakewalk." So there you go. That's all the information you really need. Now, I will
Okay.
say that Reread has sent me a video, a YouTube video of his song. I just want to say to people, if you're thinking about sending your music in, you can follow the instructions down below. You don't need to have a video for it. These little videos that you see on the show each week, I make those for the show. You just need to send me the music, and I'll make a quick little. I say I, I don't actually make them. I compile them using a service which I think is
Hey,
I can't remember what they're called now, Render Forest or something like that. I don't know. Well worth it. $50 a month. Make as many videos as you want. Anyway, I
oh, to
digress.
get quiet.
So yeah, you don't need to make a video, but Reread has in this. So we'll challenge people who are in the live chat now to perhaps keep in mind my first mix tip and think about balance as you're listening to this piece of music.
If you don't know this dance, we've been too far apart for a period of way too long. I'll dream all night of meeting you in this song. When I fly in, you're waiting for me, open arms. I'll be so tired after 2 days of travel. I'll try to tell you something, but my thoughts just won't unravel. You're trying to tell me I'm thinking too much. Then you come close, caress me, and we fall into bed. I'll dream all night of meeting you in this song. When I fly in, you're waiting for me, open arms. Do the Isaan Waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, waltz. Do the Isaan Waltz. 1, 2, 3, dance with me. One, two, three, dance with me.
I'm glad you're here, Ricky, because that means you get to go first.
Okay. Right now, as Mike says, the focus this week is on balance and listening to that track. Yeah, there's some. Yeah, I like the chord movement on that. That was nice, and the 3/4 time was a nice change, and it gave it a nice feel to it. The thing that I think upset the balance of this particular track was the lack of bass, because the chord work was really nice, but the element that was missing was like an audible bass line. Now I've seen a couple of comments where they've said the bass has been little bit uneven. I couldn't hear it, to be honest. It was like, where was it? I think that would have helped to balance the track a bit more, and maybe not leave the vocal as exposed as it was. Because I mean, yes, you could hear what he was doing, but for me, sonically, there was like a whole octave that was missing from the track.
Mm.
So the balance there, I think, would have been better had we had a bit more of it.
Interesting. Somebody just was saying, Alan was just saying in the comments there, maybe just a bit more of a spread there with the instruments. I probably agree with that. And also there was some harshness to this mix.
Yeah.
There was a certain amount of harshness, and it was coming from several sources, in my opinion. There was a ride cymbal which was playing a lot of the way through. And by the way, or needed to hear more velocity changes in that ride cymbal. It was a little bit too constant and a little bit too exact, something I'll tend to hammer on about on this show. And then there was a sort of I think it was a nylon string guitar sound in there as well. That was a little harsh. Added to the fact, and it was nice to see someone singing, by the way, in the moment, actually singing the track. But I did notice that, and I don't know how representative the camera angle was of what was going on, but I did notice in that shot, I could hardly see the microphone in there, which indicated to me that he was quite a long way away from the microphone, probably like this far away from the microphone. Now, a lot of people might make the mistake of coming up here a bit too often, which is a little bit of a mistake because you don't have to move much at this distance to get a lot of change. But you do want to be a bit closer than he was, and that would have added a lot more warmth to the vocals.
Yes.
I'm going to say it up front. I think that and I'm not meaning to be unkind here. I think the artist is not very confident about their singing. And probably needs to sort of find their space a bit more with their vocal is probably the best way I'm going to say it. However, they weren't being helped by the tone of the vocal. It was very sort of exposed, as you said, maybe a little bit more reverb on there, but I think it wasn't being helped by the microphone being, quite a long way away. In my opinion, I could be wrong about that, but I think that the starting places for this, though, for Reread, if he's watching, is exactly where Ricky said, in my opinion. Look at the low end of this mix a little bit, and then look at... I actually think some of that harshness will disappear with a little bit more of a stereo spread as well. That was why I was glad to see that comment, because it just seemed a little bit too much in the middle, both mix-wise, like in terms of the width and also frequency range as well. It was so much of it in the middle. So hope that helps a little bit. But in terms of volume balance, I'm going to say this wasn't a million miles away from where it needs to be. It was just a bit rough. It needs to be refined, a little bit of tweaking here and there. Okay. I'm just going to have a quick word from our sponsor, DistroKid, of course. You can point to them for me, Ricky, can't you? Straight up there. This is what will happen if you follow the link.
Follow the link.
If you do follow the link in the description down below, it's going to take you to a special page on DistroKid with this yellow banner at the top. That banner is letting you know that you're going to get a further 7% discount off your first year if you sign up here. And let's face it, it's already very cheap. If we scroll down, we can see that a year's membership is $19.99 per year for an unlimited number of albums and songs. And so long as it's your own music, there are no extra charges, and you get to keep all of the royalties from the various platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, Pandora, Amazon, Instagram, Tidal, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and more. Now, before I talk about the next mix tip, I want to kind of Ricky, you've recently become a YouTuber, but you've been involved in the audio community. To a very high degree, especially on Facebook there, but you've also got a long history of it as well. And I wonder if you've noticed this phenomenon. It's not really a phenomenon, but it's something I think is secretly the case. And that is the old YouTuber who promotes himself as the expert on all things audio, shows you the saturation plugin, which has just come out. He goes, listen to this. Doesn't it sound fantastic? And there you are at home, and you're feeling really insecure now and very inferior because you're thinking, I can't hear any difference. Right? So it happened with saturation. It probably happened with compression as well, if it's subtle compression. If you're watching, look, I do want to address this. There's probably a little bit of fear from some people that if they admit that they can't hear it, then they've invalidated themselves and they no longer look like an expert. You've got to see through the egos sometimes. Don't feel bad if you can't hear some things. But a little tip about hearing things from my perspective, is to hear them in comparison to other things. Sometimes we can't hear something, but then when we compare it to something else, suddenly we can hear it. Yeah, the bypass switch can be very useful for that. And that brings me on to my second topic for as a mixed tip, and that is reference tracks. I should be watching this show regularly and reminding myself to remember to use a reference track. So the purpose of a reference track, for those of you who don't know, is to take another piece of music. Usually that's going to be something commercially released, and it's going to be something that is going to help you compare your mix to this other mix. Now, this is where, it relates to the first topic a little bit, where I talk about mixing fatigue, where you lose objectivity. And it's amazing that you can be deep in that mix and you think, I'm not quite sure now what I should do. And then if you use a reference track, a reference point, really, you can go, oh. Now, by the way, it doesn't have to be someone else's material. It could be one of your own tracks. You may be looking for consistency, for example, on an EP or an album, and you might use one of your own tracks as a reference track. But they are very, very useful in this sense. So now a lot of people will message me and say to me, which reference track should I use? And that's probably missing the point, because you need to choose your own reference track. I can't tell you which reference track to use, but here's some tips. Choose a similar genre. There's no point if you're mixing a lovely little ballad to bring out Bat Out of Hell or something like that. It's probably not going to work if you've got your little piano ballad, okay? So you want something similar in genre, and that really, what I was alluding to there as well, was similar in arrangement. I'm listening for something which, at least, if I've got, acoustic guitar, drums, bass and piano, I'm going to be looking for something which has got a similar arrangement to that. Now, there's going to be variations in that, that's fine. But for example, drums are important. If you happen to be recording a song which has no drums in it, don't use a reference track which has drums in it. It's going to it's such a different mix when you get into so something with a similar arrangement is important. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to point out about reference tracks before I let Ricky have his input here is do remember when you get your reference track that it's been mastered. Okay, there's a couple of things sonically that can make some difference. It shouldn't make a whole big bunch of difference, but it does mean that you need to make sure that your volume match at least. So what I do is I grab if I'm in Cakewalk, I'll grab my reference track and I'll put it on a spare track in the DAW where I can easily, solo or mute it or what have you. Now, if you're listening to something which is, as we know, the phenomenon of when things are a little bit louder or a lot louder, they tend to sound better. We want to avoid that. So just make sure you adjust the volume of your reference track. It's very, very important to do this so that you're not listening to two things which are a completely different volume. That's very, very important in terms of preparation. Okay? You don't have to use one reference track. I normally do. You could, choose one or two for different. But Ricky, do you make use of reference tracks? Are you like me? Do you forget to do it?
Yes and no. I think in my earlier days, I was probably more likely to have a reference track available to me to compare the piece I was working on to. But I find over the years, what tends to happen is I already have a reference track, because when I'm composing, it's like, right, okay, I want this particular track. Yeah, I want it to kind of feel like George Duke, for example.
Yep.
And the vibe on this one's kind of Brazilian Love Affair. So having already noted what the makeup of that track was and the instrumentation and that kind of thing, and even the mix, not in an obvious way, as in doing a straight A-B with Brazilian Love Affair, but if I was going to do a Brazilian kind of track, that's kind of like my template for doing that kind of thing. So yes, invariably, I guess I do end up using that as a reference. It's a particular song rather than just a genre. A particular song. How did that make me feel? what constituted that mix and what were the levels in that mix. So it's become a subconscious thing on the way that I work now. But certainly in my earlier days, yes, you're absolutely right that if you want to get close to that production sound, if you like, you've got to listen to it, analyze it, put it alongside what you're doing, and then make the adjustments to bring them closer together.
It's very valid, actually. Yeah, to have, and I want to say to people watching, we're not sort of talking about copying things here. We're talking about being inspired by something and thinking of the feel that mix gives you. When you listen to it, and you're kind of aiming for that. So yeah, it's a really good point, actually, Ricky. Kind of having something in mind while you're in the creation process of the piece of music. Yeah, really, 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 really good idea. And I do that sometimes myself. I also do this sometimes for individual instruments, so I'm not using the whole thing. I personally really love, if I was going for acoustic guitars, I love the sound that Damien Rice has on his acoustic guitars. Another example would be James Taylor. I love the sound of James Taylor's acoustic guitars. And it's more for perspective. If I'm fiddling with it, I've got that acoustic there, I've recorded it, and perhaps I'm EQing it. And then when you have those days, sometimes you think, it's not happening here. What am I missing? Then just having a quick listen to somebody else's, something else as a reference. Again, I'm talking about this idea of we can sometimes hear things better by comparison than we can by just listening to them in isolation. And so I find that a little bit helpful as well. But yep. So make use of reference tracks of difference. I love Ricky's input here as well. Perhaps have something in mind at the creation process. And when you've done it for many years as well, then you may not need to actually physically bring a reference track in to listen to, because you're so familiar with that sound. So thanks very much for that, Ricky. Now, the next song which we have here for Fix My Mix this is always interesting to me. I love it when people tell me that they were just using some basic equipment. There's something about this which is this is our age of recording. This is what it's all about. This is the age we live in. We should celebrate this. It's great that in the 70s and 60s, 70s, 80s, they had these massive studios with great big desks and everything, and great sonic qualities and things in some of those studios. But also, we're going to look back at this age and go, this was the age of the guy in his bedroom with a little Scarlett 2i2 who made magic, right? So I love it when people tell me this. Anyway, the artist name here, Ricky, you do this so well, I'll pop it up here.
Okay.
The artist,
Okay.
go ahead with that.
The artist's name is Coco Pelli, and the song is Deja Vu.
Cool. Now, I will tell you that that's a stage name, and so I'm just going to break confidence here. Brent Alexander sent this in to me. And what he said to me is this is his first song after 9 years away from music, recorded in Cakewalk with a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. I always smile at that. But it's the what do they say about the key of G? It's the working man's key or something like that, or the key of the people or something like that. I don't know. It's a guitarist thing, But I think the Scarlett 2i2, it's the most common audio interface on the planet, apparently. So Focusrite tell us quite often. It's pretty straightforward and basic, I'm going to say. It's not many bells and whistles on it. It's reasonable price, works for people. They make music with it. He also used an SE Bluebird mic, so I haven't actually used one of those, to be honest with you. I've got a couple of SE. Why does the full name elude me now? But anyway.
SE Electronics.
SE Electronics, of course. Got a couple of their microphones, but I haven't tried the Bluebird. Telecaster, an Alvarez acoustic. I used to have one of those. Nice guitars. And he says he's doing everything alone. He said he suspects he's lost his ear's objectivity. Much appreciation. I should also mention that he's used Addictive Drums too, I think. So now look, this song is 5 minutes long. When I see songs come in to me and they're 5, 6, 7 minutes long, I go, okay, I'm going to judge you now. do you hold me for the 5 minutes? You know, I'll play it. I'll play them all, but can you hold me for 5 minutes? I'll let everyone in the chat be the judge of that. Let's have a listen to this, as we say, from Coco Pelli, Deja Vu.
Words made of concrete to build a castle we can die in. I don't know what you plan. Follow you anyway, friend. Your ups and downs, all the downs and curve to the bottom. Days like these I am swallowed in the eye of the storm. My mind is as sharp as you. Never show up when my mind is as sharp as you. No, you never show up when my mind is as sharp as you. Deja vu again, all these pupils dilate into pours down on the courtyards while soldiers rip through the hillside. Alone, I'll fight till my bones, my flesh be out. My mind is as sharp as you. You never show up when my mind is as sharp as you. Oh, you never show up when my mind is as sharp as you.
Ricky.
Yes.
Oh, I was 5 minutes. That was just. I think it was just over 5 minutes. There.
Yeah.
Sometimes I really want to go first. Sometimes, but
Yeah, you go first. It's your show, man. You go first if you want to go first.
well, look, music is we can sort of talk as if there's facts about music sometimes, but the reality is it's so subjective, isn't it? It's so there's so much personal taste goes in there and all that kind of thing. And I think all of my guests are really good on the show. When something comes up which is of a genre that they don't normally listen to or they don't normally like, then they sort of say, got to declare this, And then we try and we try and be as objective as we can to give a balanced opinion. But I can't be with this one. I really can't be with this one because first I have to say that I really do like this genre of music very much. It reminds me of many, many things that I listen to. And so I want to speak directly to Brent, who sent this in, because I think after 9 years of being away from music, recording just on a Scarlett 2i2 with virtual drums and a few instruments there, just want to look him in the eye and say, mate, thank you so much. It's actually an honour to me that you say you listen to the channel, watch the channel and get something from me, because I would be extremely proud of that mix. Maybe it's just the song which is doing it for me, so I just didn't care about the mix. I loved it so much. It's one of the favourite pieces of music that I've ever had on any of these shows. I was just off in a little dream world there. I was loving it. I was loving your voice. I was loving the harmonies. The break, which came a little bit later in the song, did something different. I love so many things about it because there was so much heart in it for me. I was feeling it just as a person listening to a piece of art. For me, that's my opinion, and it's not. I know that some people in the chat that I was watching found some things in the mix here and there, which they were not liking. Maybe the bass end. I didn't hear that. To be honest with you, it was sounding good to me. Now, I will say one thing about it though, and I guess I'm looking for something to be constructively critical about. There was a very interesting break in there, a moment of silence, quite a big long break with a kind of a bit of a crackly. It sounded like a guitar about to come in there. I loved that little break, but you did it twice. Could have done it once in the whole song, would have been cool. Didn't need to be twice. And that sort of brings me to my final point. There's a radio version of this song. There's a shortened version of this song for radio where you can chop a couple of bits out, and it still is a very, very, very good song. I don't mind the 5-minute version on an album because I just loved the song, and I've listened to it a few times, to be honest with you already. I just really enjoyed it. But for some people, Brent, you perhaps could shave a little bit off of it. But everything else for me was fine. Look, Ricky might have something different to say. And I think it's lovely if he has, if people have got a different opinion, because this is what music is about to me. We all love and respond to different things, like we all love different partners in life, and we all love our children differently. No, we don't do that. We love them equally, don't we? Ricky, I'll let you talk now because I just have to get that out.
Okay. Right. Well, my view is a little bit different to yours, Mike. I mean. The first thing I would say about it is that I love the production texture of this track. It really does take you somewhere, the atmospherics of listening to it. It really does take you somewhere. However, I feel bad about saying it now.
No, don't feel bad.
No, listen,
I think it's
look,
really
it's
important.
just, listen, if you're watching, it's just my opinion, okay? It doesn't mean I'm right. It's just my opinion. My opinion, where I think this song didn't do everything that it could have was in the arrangement, because, texturally and, the vocal was lovely texture, really intimate. Yeah, it's all great. But I was waiting for the hook. And with a song like this, for me, it makes it more complete if it's got that element in there that gives it sing-along ability. Because I'm thinking about the punters. I say, okay, then what will make this song more memorable than how it's been presented? And I think that's the one key element that's missing. Because if you want to make the song over 4 minutes kind of thing, you're going to need to have something in there that keeps the listener engaged. And I don't mean that from a muso's point of view, as in, oh, that was a wicked solo, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's not that. You need to give the listener, I think, something that they can go back to. So it's like when you ask somebody about a famous song. And what do they go for? They go for the hook, don't they? Every bloody
Now,
time.
I will say, as you say that, I take your point. I mean, I think when we look at these types of, let's call it a piece of art again, there's a context that has to be had, So is the
Sure.
context, radio play, or is the context one of those tracks on an album? But I will say, though, that this, as you were talking, I was thinking of examples of this, things with a similar texture, but do
Yeah.
have a hook. And I'm going to go to, it's a Radiohead song. I don't know if it's actually called this by title, but the main lyric is fade out again or so. Is it Street Spirit or the name eludes me. Somebody will tell me in the chat, but there's actually a couple of radio songs like this where there is a hook in there, even though it's got very similar texture to this, but Michael York's voice is there. Did I use? No, I'm getting my words muddled today. But anyway, Tom York's voice, even Michael York, who's he? But fade out again. I'm gonna get copyright claim or something like that. But yeah, there's a hook in there. So you're right. Sorry, Street Spirit.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Luke Smith, for telling me about that. You know what I'm talking about. Street Spirit. It's somewhat of a similar vibe to this, but does have a hook in there.
Look,
Carry on,
I
Ricky.
tried to stay open when I was listening to it, because after a couple of minutes, it was apparent that the song wasn't constructed that way, as in having a hook you're going to go back to. However, I think if you're going to do this kind of song, you need to, if you're not going to use a hook, it's got to be built into the arrangement itself, kind of thing, because there's a section there where, say, the drums come in. I think it's for 8 or 16 bars. I can't remember. It comes in, and then once it's in, for me, it's got to stay there. Yeah.
Oh, you didn't like the fact that it dropped off? I
Don't let
liked
it
that.
go.
I liked that, man.
No, it's got to stay in there, man, because by keeping the drums
Brent,
in
don't
there,
listen to anything you say.
then you're raising, you're raising the intensity of the song, kind of thing. So you're bringing it to a crescendo, and as you said, Mike, the pregnant pause, it works once, but don't do it twice, because it's like you're waiting for something, and okay, what was I waiting for? It leaves you feeling that way. So if you're watching this and listening to what I'm saying, please, I'm really trying to be helpful
No, you are being
with
helpful.
my comments, kind
No,
of
you
thing.
are.
The song itself was, with what you had available to you, was beautifully done. The first thing I said was, I love the production.
And let's reflect
upon
that at the moment. I'd like to play it again, but I'm not going to. But if people watch the replay of this, and I've got to say, he sent me the WAV version of this as well. This has obviously been squashed down to sort of an MP3 format and then streamed. But I had the WAV version. This was very, very nice production, in terms of the sonic qualities.
I can hear that.
And as I say, recorded at home with a Scarlett 2i2, not an expensive microphone. And I want to say as well, talking about that little break that came in, I'm going to admit this: Addictive Drums was used. I actually emailed the artist and I said, what's the story with the drums on this? Because I was a little bit second guessing myself. I was thinking, are these real drums or are these programmed drums? I'm not quite sure. Maybe I've listened to programmed drums for so long and so many of them that I've started to believe that's the real sound. But I thought they were very well programmed drums in this.
Good
There was a lot of subtleties in there. There was a lot of oomph to them when they came in. Just really, really well done. So why would I play a song like this on the show anyway, if my opinion is like this? Sometimes it's to say to other people, this is what's achievable with the small amount of equipment that you have sonically. Whether you agree or disagree with Ricky and me on the different aspects of the arrangement or what have you, we're all agreed on the sonic qualities with this song. So anyway, we'll move on from this. But Brent, if you've come back after 9 years and this is the first thing you've produced,
well done.
Let's hear some more music from you, man. I definitely want to hear it anyway. Moving on, let's just have a quick word. Because one of the things, unfortunately, we have to be involved with after making this music and mixing it and mastering it is then we're usually exhausted, aren't we? Get it out to the world. It's all I can do to make a Facebook post about it and get my mum to listen. I can't be bothered with that by the time I produce the music. So yeah, it is useful to do things like get on playlists on Spotify and what have you. And there's a fun way to do it if you join up with DistroKid. One of the ways to actually get your music heard on Spotify is to get onto a playlist. Now, DistroKid offers a really fun way to get onto one of their playlists with their Wheel of Playlists feature. Simply head over to your DistroKid account, go to the top right where it says Goodies, then go down to Wheel of Playlist, and then you start off simply by selecting a song, something you've already released, and then click on Connect with Spotify. Now, obviously, the further up a playlist you get, the more likely people are to actually hear your music and enjoy it. So what DistroKid do here with this feature is they give you 3 chances to spin a wheel, a kind of a wheel of fortune type of thing going on here. Now, the best result of those 3 spins determines your number in the playlist. And as I say, the higher up you are, the better. So on this occasion, I achieved 1,088. You can try every day if you like. So maybe that's something you'd like to do to actually get your music in a playlist on Spotify. So talking about mix tips, here's my final one. I could give so many mix tips, couldn't I? But here's one which I think is important. I sort of chatting with Ricky about this before, and I think we look at this in a strange way. And I wanted to, the one I want to talk about is automation. Now, I've heard this saying, I may have heard it from Warren Hewitt first, I don't know. But it was this saying which was the difference between a good mix and a great mix is automation. No, it wasn't Warren Hewitt. Who was it? Oh, I can't remember. Chris Lord-Alge maybe said it. Doesn't matter who said it. Somebody said it of great wisdom. And they're right. I think it's actually pretty hard to get even an average mix without automation. That's where I differ from them. There's some really good reasons for that. But the first thing I want to say about automation, if you're thinking when you're starting out, oh, that's a kind of an advanced feature which I'll learn about in years to come, I would not do that whatsoever. And the reason for that is, well, it goes to another mix tip, which I haven't discussed here, where sometimes people start to say to me, where should I start mixing a song? Which part of the song? Because I used to make the mistake years ago, Ricky, of starting at the beginning. The reason I say that is because a lot of my songs, and it will depend on what sort of music you do, but a lot of my songs would typically start off with a single instrument, a piano or a guitar and a vocal, and then they would build and I would bring more instruments in for the arrangement for the chorus. But I always found when I started at the beginning, oh, that guitar sounds nice. Now I'll get that vocal in balance with it. That sounds great. And then it builds up into perhaps the second verse where a few other instruments come in. I'll mix them and I get to the chorus. Oh, it's all over the place now because there's so many more things at work, right? I'll get to a point with this in a moment. But what I do recommend now is don't do that, because you'll find yourself pushing the faders up and up and up and up and up as you go through the song. You've got nowhere to go. So what I say, start in the loudest part of the song. There's normally going to be a chorus. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be the very loudest part of the song, but just a typically, towards the end where there's a lot of things in there. You will then get what I call a static mix, but a basic mix, a basic balance for the song. You've got all the instruments, or most of the instruments which are going to be in the song, in there. You build that up. You've got the hardest work done. Okay, you've done that. It's fantastic. And then you go to your first verse again, where there's just that guitar and perhaps a little bass and a vocal. It's not going to be right. That vocal's not going to be right now in comparison to that guitar. It's going to be wrong for that section of the song, and for the bridge, and for the outro. So that's why you must have automation, because you need to have balance across the whole length of the song, from the beginning to the end. We talked about balance as the first thing. Automation gives you that. Now, I would recommend, if you've not done much automation and you're just sort of getting into it, if you're going to focus on anything, I'd say 9 times out of 10 for me, if you're going to automate anything, vocals. Vocals are
Absolutely.
so important to automate. Generally in contemporary music, not always, but generally in contemporary music, we describe the vocals as being on top of the mix, right? What we're really recognizing is that's where most of the general public focus their attention, and we want to make sure that they're audible, that they're there, that they're being able to be heard. They are kind of the solo instrument, but like I say, I don't want to have definite things here. Different genres of music don't always have the vocals with such high regard, but generally anyway, whatever it is. But vocals, for most of us, is a good place to start automation. Now, and another good place to start is just with the fader, automating the fader. Fine. But I'll also suggest you that EQ is a very interesting and important thing to automate. I'll give you an example, going back to my typical example, where I'll have that acoustic guitar at the beginning of the song, and then the acoustic guitar is still there when all the other instruments come in, the bass, the piano, the drums, right? But it's got a different role in terms of frequencies at that point. At the beginning of the song, it's the only instrument. So the low end of it, for example, it's covering a little bit more if we want it to have a little bit of warmth. Whereas now when the bass comes in and the piano, there's a lot more crossover with other things. We want it to get out of the way of those things. So I often EQ my acoustic guitars, which I use in a lot of my songs, that they'll have... Now, sometimes it could just be EQing in terms of just a bypass kind of a thing, but I'll also graduate it sometimes. And the other thing you can think about EQing, for example, is reverb. Reverb can be used to make the presence of something more or less, to give it more or less presence. Can also be used to make things sound a bit larger for some parts of the song as well. So that would be something that I would typically automate as well. I see Happy Ron in the chat here. He's got a lot to say about this. EQ brings automation brings happiness. Automation is where it is. There's a few things that you could print on a T-shirt there from Happy Ron. But I want to hear what Ricky T. Brown has said. What do you think about all this stuff about automation? What do you automate, Ricky? Where's it at for you?
Well, some of what you just mentioned that just went.
Did it?
Because I ain't doing it.
Cool. You picked up some tips from me.
However, what I do use automation for more than anything else is automating the levels of groups and individual tracks. Certainly things you can group together, like, you know, if you've got your backing vocals, you've found what the balance should be, then right, okay, we'll group that up, and when it comes to the mix itself, then you're moving them in and out together. So you're not having to say, oh, what? Okay, I've got a 4-part harmony here. Shit, what am I going to do? No, you've got them all together. The other thing that I was thinking, well, while you were speaking about, the whole idea of automation, absolutely, certainly with vocals, absolutely essential.
Mm.
But then again, it depends on what genre you're working in, because you can use automation as a creative tool in itself. Um,
Mm.
if you want to create atmosphere, and certainly when you start talking about cinematic stuff, and then
Mm.
you've got your strings, and then they come at you and then
Mm.
come back
Mm.
out again, kind of thing.
Swells and things,
So
yep.
it's
Mm.
a swell kind of thing,
Mm. Mm.
and yeah, there are a couple of ways you can do that. I mean, yes, I guess you could program it, but for me, I'd write the part, and then when it came to the mix, say, okay, then I want to create this feeling here, and automation is your tool
Mm.
for doing that kind of thing. So it's as Mike is saying, it's the wrong approach, I think, to just, okay, you think you've got all your levels right, and you kind of leave it there, and yeah, it kind of does. There's more to it than that. So if
Mm.
you want
Mm.
your music to come alive, I think automation is the key tool in
Mm.
making that happen.
Yep. Also, just a quick, by the way, as well, something I didn't mention, but a little bit, not a lot for me, but a little bit of automation during the mastering process. If you do decide to master your own things, I only do it a little bit, but I have heard people definitely talking about just when, say, the chorus kicks in, automating a little bit of a volume boost, the first few beats of a chorus or something like that. As I say, I've done it a little bit. I like it, but I don't always do it. It's going to depend on the song, whether you think you want it or not. But yeah. So automation, I hope that people have found that helpful, inspiring, and feel like they want to. Thomas, Chris, who was just, hey Thomas, thank you. I just enjoyed watching you actually over on Pete John's over there. And yeah, automation, great stuff for like filter cut-offs and things. Funnily enough, I was just talking about that during my video this week when I reviewed the new V collection from Arturia, and I was looking at their new augmented strings and augmented
Yeah,
vocals, which I'm really, really loving.
yeah,
And they
a
have
couple of
those
bad boys.
those sort of knobs on there on the front. And I think I might have said in the video, but I felt, oh, this is one of those instruments where you don't just want to be loading up that preset and using that. You want to be pushing those things up and
Mm,
down, automating, the morph control, and stuff like that. And I think another great sort of it's a little bit of a different kind of an automation, because we're talking about sort of MIDI automation here. In other words, we're recording sort of MIDI events normally, and with virtual synths in this. Whereas the other automation I was talking about was sort of like audio automation, if you like. But it's the same principles. It's the same kind of thing. And again, it gives movement to the sound in a synth, doesn't it? Especially when we're talking about filter cutoffs
mm,
and things like that. It just gives this feeling. Not like you were talking about swells with strings and things. That's a volume change, but this is a texture change which
mhm.
happens. And yeah, you can use it very, very expressively in the same way a guitarist might use certain techniques on a guitar to change the sound as he or she is playing. Great input there. Thank you, Thomas, for that. By the way, Thomas, you should come on this show sometime, I reckon. You're a great guest over there on Pete's show. Always looking out for good guests, aren't we, Ricky?
Indeed.
So, look, I hope that people have found those tips sort of useful. If you'd like me to include these tips from myself, or perhaps even from my guests as well in future shows, then would very much like to hear from you. Do a little thumbs up on this video now. Let me know in the live chat, or let me know in the comments if you're watching the replay. Now, I did talk about guests there. I'm going to have a new guest on the show in a couple of weeks' time. Not the next show, but the one after. And he's actually a gentleman who I've featured his music on the show before. And in fact, when we did the what was it? What was the show I used to do? I can't even remember the name of my own shows. How's that? Featured Artist Live, which we used to do.
Yeah.
And then I did a bit of a rundown of the year. I picked one of his songs as my number one song. He's in the chat right now, and I think his partner's in the chat right now. I saw it earlier on as well. Was her name Carla? Did I get that right? I'm useless with names. But anyway, Happy Ron and his partner is here. Now, Ricky, I noticed earlier you were a little nervous to criticise the song, which I thought was wonderful. In fact, I'm going to say it again. I think it's one of the best songs that I've personally enjoyed on the show, because I can't say it's the best song or one of the best songs. I can only say, for me personally, that's the only thing we can ever say about music, really. But and I have been an admirer of Happy Ron's. I like his writing style. I sometimes have popped in on his YouTube channel here and there and watched him do different things. I've listened to a number of his tracks. Anyway, he's going to be a guest on the show in a couple of weeks' time. And he did actually submit this upcoming song for me to have a listen to. Now, again, I have to sort of declare something about this up front. I've not had any involvement in the song, but the subject of the song is a little bit close to my heart, you might say. And one of my children, they describe it now as being on the autism spectrum. So one of my kids is on the autism spectrum, and I guess it was more typically in the past. It's a term they don't use anymore, but Asperger's syndrome. It's something. So this is a subject this is the subject of the song, which Happy Ron has sent in. It's called "Thank You for Being My Friend." So I'm a little bit coloured in terms of when I was listening to it. I noticed I kind of wanted to like this song before I even. Do you know what I mean? I had a positive thing going on there. However, as Ron has submitted this song into Fix My Mix, the Fix My Mix show, I have to warn you, Ron, that you are open to the same level of criticism as anyone else who sends their music in. And me and Ricky will not hold back if we think there's something amiss, especially Ricky, of course. If there's something amiss, we should have had Dan on here, shouldn't we? We should have had Dan. I know
he's worse than me. You're joking.
That's right.
I'm the good guy.
I was speaking to him earlier, and he's actually had a tough week, and he's had a tough couple of weeks, poor Dan. And I actually didn't say to him, Ricky's coming on the show. Come on, Dan, if you're watching. Sorry, mate, we haven't left you out for any other reason than to give you a rest, you poor bugger. And I know he's trying to produce a video at the moment as well. But anyway, I digress. Dan would, if he was here, he would definitely give you a hard time, Ron. But Ricky has shown his true colours tonight. He's prepared to criticise. Why am I saying all this? There might be nothing to criticise. But anyway, you've been warned, Ron. You're going to be open to the same level of criticism as anyone else, despite the fact that you're still going to be a guest on this show in a couple of weeks' time, which I'm thoroughly looking forward to. Let's have a listen to this song. It's called "Thank You for Being My Friend" from Happy Ron.
Some people you wanna talk to every chance you can. You walk into a room and they greet you with a grin. Do you like who you are? So much better when you're with them. So thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my friend. Some people you want to talk to when each week comes along. You know that they'll support you and help you to feel strong. You hope they'll love your stories like the chorus of a song. So thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my friend. my friend. Thank you for being my friend. Some people you want to talk to when something happens that's new. You know life's best moments won't seem real until you do. And every day I'm glad I found my way to you. So thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my friend. When can we do this again? Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Ron is going to be a guest on this show in a couple of weeks' time. Looking forward to seeing you, Ron. But now it's time for baptism of fire.
Oh well. Look. If you've been doing music any length of time, as soon as you hear the first 8 bars of this, you get a feel for what it is, and you know, the parameters are set for how you should judge it. Now, if I were going to judge this on the basis of, you know, what I might think is or isn't commercial, then I'd be saying something different to what I'm saying now, I guess. But I love this song, you know. I just love this song because there's not 1 ounce of pretentiousness about the way it's been done. It tells the story. It gives the message in a manner that you cannot miss. And I have to congratulate the keyboard player, your man on piano. He was good. I really appreciated that, being a keyboardist myself. But getting back to the song, I really can't fault it, you know. It's just one of those things that you hear, and it is complete. And I'm trying hard to think of anything that I heard that was, oh well, you know, maybe you could have had a little bit more of this, or nothing. You sold the song, mate. That's all I'm saying. It's so much so that I can only hear what you've presented, and it's a lovely, lovely song. Lovely song. That's all I got to say, man.
Well, now you're going to make me feel bad, aren't you? Now you make me feel bad.
It's a lovely song.
All right, okay. Ron. Well, let me speak to everyone first. Some performances, writing, delivery don't actually require such a high level of sort of
technicals,
you know, technical stuff, mix, all that sort of stuff, simply because the piece of art itself has drawn the listener in so much that the brain just says, I don't care about all that other stuff. I'm listening to the song.
Screw that.
So it's a good song. Yeah. Now I want to talk about vocals a little bit. I think there's something to say if we go back to the very first song that we listened to, which was from Reread, and Happy Ron's vocals here. I think there's a comparison to be made here. That they both do not have that typical or classically regarded lovely sounding voice, right? Tonally and pitch wise and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
The difference is, Reread, I'm talking to you, is Ron really owns his voice. He completely runs with it. He owns it. And he says,
Yes.
this is me, warts and all, stuff you, I'm singing. Whereas I can hear reread a little bit of not so much confidence in your not so classically perfect voice. And that's a mental position, I'm afraid, which I'm not a psychologist, I can't help you with. But we all suffer from that, by the way. I'm not criticizing you. We all suffer from insecurities. And unfortunately, if they get strong enough, they can be heard in every moment of the performance. Vocalists, guitarists, other instrumentalists. If you're thinking, I'm not very good, it's gonna be heard. So I will say that I think Ron probably knows that he hasn't got like a typically. I was going to say Mariah Carey. Of course, he's not going to have a Mariah Carey voice, Mike. You idiot.
No.
But let's think of another male voice. I can't. Brilliant male voices are eluding me. But anyway, Ron knows he's not that, but he knows what he is, and he owns it. He knows he's a good lyricist. I know he's not big-headed. He knows he's a good lyricist, that he's got a message there, and he runs with it. So he's not. He knows he doesn't have to be bothered with having a perfect. Yeah, he's just said it there. I sing Happy Ron style, and that's it.
Yeah.
Love that about it.
Yeah. Respect
So I like
it.
the song. I like the feel of the song. There was a couple of bits here and there where I was trying to be super critical in my mind, and again, I'm just going to go back to there was a little harshness in this mix. There could be a little bit more stereo spread, but probably the harshest thing I've got to say is the hardest thing for me to say, Ron, because I do love this song just like Ricky.
Yeah.
And the reason this is so hard is because normally when we're listening to songs, we listen to an awful lot of songs with virtual instruments in them. So the addictive drums is not going to be offended. So I mean this, and I'm going to say this very, very gently, because I know I'm going to talk about the drums in this song, and I know there's a real drummer involved, a person, and you know, I don't really want to offend them, but I felt, I'm not going to talk about mix here, I felt the drum performance here. And there was a couple of bits where it went a little off time. I'm not so bothered about that. It doesn't matter on a song like this. It was very slightly anyway. I just didn't feel that the actual choice of rhythm was the best. It was a little bit loud in the mix, and I thought this could have been halftime. So it was more like doom, 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 doom. I thought it could have been experimented with doom, 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 doom. Thank you for being. My friend, I'm just talking music. That's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. I could be right. I could be wrong.
It's
Right?
interpretation, yeah.
That's just all I'm going to say there. But that was the only thing that I was thinking. Oh, I'd like to hear those drums with a slightly different emphasis or something like that. Sorry to the drum. I don't know his name. Sorry, I don't want to offend, single you out as like the only bad thing in the song. That's why I feel so terrible about saying it.
No,
But
yeah, you tell him that I thought it was all right because
But that's
I was
right, yeah.
chugging
he was
all the
liking
way
it. Yeah,
through
exactly.
that.
So that is definitely an opinion thing there. But Ron, you know I love your music so much, and I love the reason why you make music, and the whole messaging behind your music is you know what I really like. But there you go. I think a number of other people seem to be really enjoying that. And
Yeah.
it does bring up a sort of little. So it's one of these topics that we will talk off air normally, Ricky.
Yes.
But why not just put it on air for the last 5 minutes of the show? We talk about mixing on a show like Fix My Mix as if, hey, if you've got a great mix, everything's going to be good. But it's not true, is it?
It's just a start. Yeah. It's just one element.
It's one element. I think what this reminds me of is, and I know it's a cliche, you know, I think it was Quincy Jones who was quoted as when they said, what's the three most important aspects of a release? And he said, the song, the song, the song. And I subscribe to that. I think without a decent song, you've got absolutely nothing to work with. You've got nowhere to go. But I have occasionally heard a good song crippled by a bad mix. I personally think it has to be a really bad mix to distract you away there's something in the mix which is just so awful and distracting that you can't even concentrate on the song. I think a good song can survive an average mix very, very well indeed. What I'm not going to waffle. I want to hear what you think about this, Ricky.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything that you've said there. Yeah, I mean, I do a few instrumentals, but the songs, for me, they've got to have depth in the ideas that they explore. Because there's nothing worse than you hear the first line and you know what the next one's going to be. Too much of today's music for me is that way, and the art of songwriting seems to have been lost in certain genres. Um, it's important to me that the song has a message, even if it's a basic one. There should be some attempt to actually present a common theme differently.
Oh God! Do
And
you know? I was actually going to do something on this show. You've reminded me of
yeah,
something now. Let's just pretend we're not on air.
okay.
I was going to, we see these awful adverts. Probably I make some money out of these adverts because they're probably shown on my videos, but I don't care. MIDI chord packs and all that sort of thing.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Well, there's a new one which I saw today, and I had my phone. I thought, I want to screenshot this or record it and have it on the show because it's so diabolically awful. Now, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a lyrics thing. And if you've seen this, I think I saw it on Facebook today. Just make sure you give it lots of thumbs down and leave lots of horrible. It's the worst thing ever. It's basically a guy in a studio with a rap artist, and and this guy's going, oh, your lyrics are terrible. Your mother wouldn't even listen to your lyrics. You need whatever this app is called, Lyrics Help or whatever it is. And then this guy goes, oh, yeah. And he sings these lyrics and they're all going, yeah, this is fire, man. And you go, oh, my God, is that what we're coming to? And literally the lyrics they used as an example sounded like a bunch of words.
Yeah.
Just squished together with no meaning. And people are supposed to believe that's folks, there's no shortcuts. Learn your craft. I was really
Absolutely.
annoyed by it. Rubbish. Anyway, Ricky.
Mike, you know something. You remember the last show I was on with Dan, and we've got that recurring theme
We do, don't we? Yeah.
about of no, you got to master an instrument kind of thing to call yourself a decent musician. And the retort is, my usual retort is, well, you know what, Dan, I'm a little ambivalent about all of that. I mean, however you want to make it, if it's creative, it's creative, end of. But I have to say that last time, and then a post that you put up on Facebook, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, last week, I think it might have been, and it really got me thinking, because the amount of creativity that you can put into your music, where you can sidestep things like that stupid website with ready-made tracks, ready-made lyrics and all of that, and it really made me think about that. And I have to admit, I've come to the conclusion that, you know what, you're gonna find me agreeing more with your perspective in future, because I don't know. I mean, look, I'm in danger of sounding like a right oldie here, yeah. But I've come to the conclusion that to exploit the potential of anything that you're doing, you need to have a human input into it somewhere, even if it's just one instrument or whatever, but something where you are expressing your musicianship and your even down to your spirit as a player. You cannot do that with a computer.
I don't agree with
I'm
you.
sorry, you can't. Okay,
no, I don't agree with you.
So
I don't
coming
agree
back to what you're saying there, coming back to what you're saying.
Yeah, go on.
The manufactured lyrics and oh, here it is on a plate kind of thing, without somebody working on their craft, honing their craft to the point where they can do something like what Ron's done.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you're not gonna get to that or anything like that if you're using that same set approach that
Well,
you just mentioned.
look, where I disagree with you a little bit, and I know you think you're agreeing with me, but where I disagree with
Right.
you a little bit, I don't want to be quite that. I don't want to go quite that far. I would more say I think it's helpful if there's a
Mm.
human element involved.
Mm.
But and interestingly enough, Mimo Japan has just arrived here. Better late than never, I guess. Don't worry, Doug's been holding the fort for you. But Mimo Japan's, what I'm reminded is, because when I think of Mimo Japan, I think of someone who has refined their skill level with virtual instruments to a very high
Oh yeah.
degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what
I
I
mean, look,
think is, it's not so much whether there's a human. I think it can be achieved without humans involved. I don't think it can be achieved by just pressing a button and using a preset. And that's where I draw the line. That's what all these MIDI packs and all that thing. That's what they're doing. But if you're fooled by that, then I think you're missing the subtleties. In this case, with lyrics, you're missing the subtleties in human language and the way we put phrases together. It's not just the fact
yeah.
that the sentences are there and they've got cool sounding words in them. Great lyricists have a little turn of phrase. I mean, I'm a big fan of Billy Bragg. Does anyone even know who Billy Bragg is in the chat? I'm a
Yeah, no,
massive
Billy
fan of
Bragg,
Billy
man.
Bragg.
Yeah,
Here's the turn of
yeah.
phrase. Paul Simon, in some of his lyrics, an incredible turn of phrase. People will often quote Bob Dylan. I'm not a huge Bob Dylan fan, but I can see why they quote him. A wonderful way with words.
Yeah.
At the moment, I don't think there's a computer algorithm that can do that. Now, I
No,
say that at the moment because if
no.
this little advert that I saw for this lyrics thing had happened to produce some amazing lyrics, then fine. Because I'm sort of a little bit with you. You've expressed this. The end listener, they care about the result, not what was put into it, right?
Yeah,
If
sure.
if a guitar solo is good, the end listener doesn't care if it was inspired in the moment and it took you 2 minutes to come up with it, or whether you worked on that guitar solo for a year to perfect it. It's of no consequence to the listener. They just like the guitar solo or not, right?
Well, can I challenge you on that, Mike?
Go for it.
I think it is of consequence to the listener. Yes, if it's good, it's good. So yeah, I agree that the listener's going to like it if it sounds good. Right,
Mm.
fine. And they may not care how you got there. But I guess the point I'm making is, in order to get them to react to it in that way, the players or player has to have put something in it, something
Ah,
original in it to make it memorable to them at the end of the day. So yes, you can do all completely computerized stuff. And listen, I'm not for a moment taking a pop at people like Mimo, because I think he's flipping genius with what he does
no,
in
calm down. Let's not.
turning
He gets too much praise already. Calm down. This is my show.
turning his use of plugins. But what he does with that is that he adheres to I guess if you could call them, rules of real playing. So
Mm.
you've got the intonation and the arranging skills that's involved. Some people like me have taken that to a new level. So whatever I might be saying about the over reliance on the computer doesn't include people like that, because they're clearly taking it to a level where they can include all those nuances when they don't have to,
Yeah.
because there's a trouble with music now. It's too generic.
Mm.
And
Mm.
copy
Now
paste,
you
copy
sound like
paste.
an old man.
Yeah, copy paste, copy paste.
Yeah.
But listen, I think I've earned my right to say all that, because see, I use the technology as well. But I still think that it's going too far, and as tempting as those packages might be to youngsters, it's if I can do anything, is to try and influence people away from that kind of thing,
Mm,
because
mm,
the music business, there are no shortcuts, and it ain't going to make your journey
mm,
shorter
mm,
by using
mm,
that
mm.
stuff, and people
I mean,
will
apart
recognize
from
it.
anything else, your success. If it's success that you're chasing, right?
Yeah,
It's not about it's not, you don't get it through chord patterns anyway. It's not, they make out in these adverts, oh, you're gonna have these 4 chords and you're gonna make $1 billion out of it because you've got
yeah,
these 4 chords, this chord progression we're giving you. There's so much more to it than that. It's one of the
yeah.
elements for sure sometimes. But I also think it leads us away from music a little bit for me.
Mm.
And well, let me step back from this again, because you said a moment ago, you used one of those phrases where I said you do sound like an old man. I can't remember what you said, but
Yeah, you did.
music these days or what have you. And if you remember in my video, I was a little bit careful to steer away from that. It's not about young and old people. You see, we make a mistake here. I think, and as I say, it wasn't very scientific, but I've got a couple of teenagers and their friends that I said, my observations show me that they're just as likely to be enthralled by a piece of music with many textures in it, with many layers in it, with variations in it, as we were. I don't want to sort of look at it. And also, I just want to talk to my fellow old fellas, of which, and I know they're, hi, Kiara, I know there are some females in the audience as well, but my demographics tell me that 97% of the people who watch my show are men, not necessarily in the same age group as me and Ricky, because there's plenty of 20-year-olds who
Speak
watch
for
the channel
yourself.
and what have you. But there's a reasonable portion of people in the audience who will be like myself and you in their 40s and 50s, etc. And I just want to caution you that you are not going to get anywhere with a young person when you say, in my day, and your music's all crap, and that
Mm.
you're not going to get what's going to happen in that communication style when you talk to people like that. They're going to shut down from you. They're not going to listen to you.
It's
And they're going
true.
to say, that
Yeah.
old bloke doesn't know what he's talking about. So I
Mm.
just, even if that's in your head, and I get tempted several times a day to express myself in this way, be careful with that, because in
Yeah.
communication, of course, we're trying to be heard and hear, and people are going to stop listening to you as soon as you start to speak at them in that
Or
way
down to
about
them, yeah.
their music
Mm.
which they feel passionate about and they love, and you come along going, as someone said earlier in the chat, get off my lawn. So I encourage constructive conversation. Also listen to today's music a little bit, do that before you just start criticizing it beyond what I did in the video, the top 10 on Spotify, because there's a lot more music out there. But understand, there was terrible music in the 50s, 60s and 70s as well. There was some really awful music. One thing they don't have today, which we had, was gimmick songs. What was that song about Star Trek in there? Star Trekking
Star
across the
Trekking
universe.
across the
Yeah.
universe.
I mean, it was fun, but it was crap, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a laugh.
I wanted
Yeah.
to use the example in the video, but it doesn't translate across the Atlantic very well. But British people will remember it. There's no one quite like Grandma. I'm sure
Oh,
you
yeah.
will agree. Postman Pat, for God's sake, was one of
Yeah.
the songs in the charts. We got rid of all that crap. Disco Duck, thank you. I did use that in the video. Thank you. and there's one of the clips, I'm surprised I didn't get any flack for it. I used a clip of Herman's Hermits in there. And I thought, someone would come back and say, hang on, Herman's Hermits weren't too bad. But the actual song, which I didn't play for copyright reasons, was I'm Henry VIII, I am my... Oh, my God. We don't have all that drivel in the charts anymore, that absolute garbage, rubbish
Oh, yeah.
music. We don't have that in the charts anymore. But then again, we've lost a lot of other things as well in the mainstream. And I do emphasize in the mainstream. Anyway, I think let's have a little pledge with each other. Rather than attack the younger generation, let's just try and encourage them and inspire them. And when they do something which is stretching the boundaries, give them lots of praise and let them know they've done a fantastic job. I can be a bit of a get off my lawn person at times, so I'm not criticizing people in that sense, but I'm trying to learn the error of my ways and be a bit more positive about this. And I want to see, more growth in music. That's what I want to see. By the
Yes.
way, there's just one other danger with this, which I caution against. We talk about the 60s, 70s, and 80s all the time. Oh, they were so great. But that doesn't mean they should come back. I'm a little bit over the reunion tours, Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet, Madness. I prefer to listen to your old tracks, to be honest with you, because when I hear you singing them now, I'm like, oh, God, not quite as good as it was. Sorry, I'm being horrible now. But we
Yeah.
don't need an endless stream of reunion tours in this world. We need new music. We need new things to come out. Go on.
Whatever
Go
you
on.
say about new music, it's actually not that often you get new music because having gone round the sun a few more times than some others, you hear things again that you've heard before. It's just been represented. So
Yeah.
genres I
Yeah.
find are cyclic.
They are.
Because I mean, look, we talk about the 70s and disco and all that. I mean, disco came back, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it came under the guise of house music. I mean,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
it was four on the floor. The only
Yeah.
difference this time is that it was done with machines as opposed to, real players,
Mm.
kind of thing. So
I mean, it's
it's
one
cyclic.
of my beefs about sort of, I'm going to put them under one blanket, but R&B, hip hop, stroke
Mm,
rap, right? One of my beefs about it is, it seems to be one of the more recent forms of music that was introduced into our culture, and yet it's been around for 30 years. I'm a little bit over it. I just want to hear something different. I know there's different versions. My son's always educating me, but Dad, there's mumble rap and there's this and that. But I know that, but they're just little slight variations really on the same thing. And honestly, I know I'm going to offend people, upset people. I'm so sorry. This is just my opinion. But the subject matter of the song is so... When I used to
mm,
listen to rap years ago, there was music about the usual things that we always sing about love and falling in and out of love. There was also social commentary. There was political commentary. There was people talking about they could just, now I understand that people are still talking about that. But honestly, in the mainstream, ugh, it's just, I'm the best rapper. I'm better than that rapper. Aren't I so great? Look at my gold chains. Look at my Mercedes. Yeah, great. That was so interesting the first couple of times someone did it, but it's so yawn now. I'm so over it. I'm so sorry. I'm going to get people to hate me so much, but I'm so over it. That's what makes... I'm bored. You've bored me with your subjects. That's a hard thing to do. Where are the songs about things, about other things? Please, Ricky, come on, join me on this one. Please back me up.
You sure you finished there? You
I
sure you
think
don't
I've
want
dug
some
a
more,
hole for
mate?
myself. See
Oh, you want some more?
my number of subscribers just dipped down below 100,000 again in just
No,
2 minutes.
listen,
There you go.
on that subject, I mean, look, I agree with pretty much most of what you said. Um, you know, um, please don't let the baseball cap fool you, yeah? Because I ain't into it either, right? And the reason for that is that, as Mike says, yeah, it meant something. It was innovative at the beginning, but once gangster rap took over,
Mm,
um, I stopped listening because it was just negative, 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 negative,
mm, 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 mm.
and the music form managed to stereotype itself with every new release. um, and I switched off it as well. So, you know, in more recent years, so UK side,
Mm,
you had, yeah, of course, you got like drill,
mm, mm.
which
Yep.
to a large degree has adopted the American standard for, if it's about rap,
Mm.
same thing. And then if you're talking about R&B, Personally, I think R&B died
Mm.
in probably about 2000 and actually, yeah, about 2007. It was like after that it had died. It stopped being R&B because R&B came through with like Motown, and then you got the Philly label and all of that great music,
Mm.
songs, musicians, singers, all of those. And it was all okay. It was developing nicely, and
Mm.
then in about 2007, 2008, it died because especially with that stupid I'm sorry, I'd sounded really old now, yeah.
There you go.
That stupid sound effect. Um, um, you know, I can't even remember the name of it now because I just blanked it from my brain. Um, it's on every record.
Mm.
Um, and I'm thinking, where's the creativity gone?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're all influenced by others. I accept that, but you know, it's like people are using like, you know the old carbon book. If you wanted to copy
Yeah,
something,
that's
you
exactly.
just
Exactly.
write in a carbon book and then,
Exactly.
hey presto, I've
Exactly.
got a new track. Look.
Now, I don't want to fall into the trap
Mm,
of saying, "Oh, some of this music's so easy to produce." I know Dan. Talking about Dan, he did a video once, probably a year or so ago, where he tried to make some sort of R&B record. So I don't want to fall into the trap of saying, "Oh, I could just go and make one of those hip hop tracks just like that, tomorrow." No, I don't want to fall into that trap. But, however,
no.
it has to be said that if we look at the actual generation, like I was listening to that top 10, as I say, and I was listening to the drum parts, which have so little variation in them. I know that those drum parts can be produced with, whatever drum library, created one or two bars, copied and pasted for the rest of the song. There may be some slight, but honestly, the drum parts in a lot of these top 10 songs, you would produce them in less than 20 minutes, I would say. Literally 20 minutes. Now, gets us back. Does the listener care? No, the listener doesn't care. But who does care? The producers care. I'm not talking about the producers in terms of the record producers, but the record companies, the labels, right? The cost of making the track is low, easy, quick, immediate. And they're going to encourage that because there's not much investment in time or money from them, because somebody can literally make it on a laptop. That's what I believe has happened, is that the commercial forces are way more, they've always been important in music, but they're way more like out of whack with the creative forces, right? What is commercially desired? A repeatable, reusable formula to make people listen, is all they are interested in. And funnily enough,
Right.
just before I let you talk, funnily enough, I was
Mm,
listening to an interview from Paul Simon from 1982,
mm.
and he was saying exactly the same thing as I just said. Go, Ricky.
Yeah. That's true, everything that you're saying there. But you know what? But equally, there's like, there's an inverse response to that as well.
Mm.
And sorry, somebody's just said, have I checked Bruno's latest album, Silk Sonic? Yes,
Yeah.
they are the real deal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I was
that
going to
is
say,
what it's
yeah.
about. So I
Mm.
totally agree with you. Yeah, lost my train of thought now.
It's all right. No, you were
But
saying there
anyway,
was a counter argument to what I just said.
yeah, there's a counter argument. Yeah, because see, if you're really analysing, well, what is the market doing? Who are the top people at the moment, or at any given point in time? The people at the top are the ones who have come with something a little bit different.
Absolutely.
Everybody else is jumped on the bandwagon to try and sound like them.
Mm.
So I don't think we're devoid of any great artists out there or great producers or
No.
great writers. They are
Bruno
out there.
Mars is a great example there. Lady Gaga, for as well,
Yeah,
just lots and lots of talent.
yeah.
Lots and lots of talent.
So if you go out to be, if if you stick to your creative principles and you say, look, this is what I do, this is how I do it. Yes, you need a certain number of stars to line up to crack it and big time. But the people that make it are the ones that have come with something different. And everybody else who's jumped on that bandwagon, yeah, they'll be saying, yo, well, this is what we think they want. But you're too late because the original is the one that cleans up all the cash. Yeah, it
Well,
won't be
absolutely.
you.
I've been watching a few completely off topic. I've been watching quite a few videos of Billy Connolly the last few days, and he describes those people as I'm going to use his term, but I'm going to call them beige. If you just rock up and copy everything else, you're just going to be a very beige artist.
Absolutely.
Not very memorable. Yeah, you might have a little bit of success here and there, but you won't stand the test of time. You'll just be beige. I'd rather what we don't get a lot of on this show from people who send their music in, whatever level it's at, and people are at different levels of mixing ability, performing
Yeah, sure.
ability, writing ability, but I don't hear much beigeness. It's funny, isn't it? Out there in the very commercial world, there's a lot of beigeness going out in the top 10 of Spotify. But at the ground level, with what I'm going to call sort of real musicians, everyday musicians, people that have day jobs and all that, but they just love to record music. They don't sit there and do beige. They do interesting things with their music. That's what we mostly hear on here. Well, whether they've mastered their ability to produce it well or not at this moment is varying. This is normally the things, folks, that we do talk about after we click end show, and me and
Yeah.
me and Ricky and Dan will have a bit of a chat, and we always say, "Oh, we should include that in the show." And today we have included it in the show, which means we've gone
Yeah.
well over time. In fact,
Oh my lord.
we're 49 minutes past the hour that I intended. But it was interesting, if not a bit of an old folk buggers rant a little bit, but it's a subject which is always worth pursuing. But we got to stop pursuing and start doing, haven't we? Get out there and make your music, folks, and please
Yeah.
me and Ricky and make it really interesting and delightful. We'd love to have your input. Follow the link in the description down below if you'd like to submit your song to Fix My Mix. Do remember, I don't mind songs in foreign languages, absolutely okay. I don't mind music which is not only not from different genres, but also things like film music or game music, if you want to send that in. There's so much more music outside of the 3.5 minutes of pop songs that we tend to think about all the time. If you've got an a cappella group, send it in. If you've just started mixing, it's your first song, send it in. If it's your 100th song and you still need some fresh ears to listen to it, send it in. I want to hear your music. We want to hear your music because we can all learn by listening to these mixes, by listening to each other's music. It's a great exercise for people as well who have been here in the live chat. And if you do join in the live chat, you get that opportunity, like us, to hear a piece of music for the first time and kind of figure out, hey, how could that be improved? A good exercise for your ears and your listening abilities. Thank you so much for joining us in the live chat. It's been lovely. And if you've watched the replay, then do leave your comments down below. Would love to hear from you on that. I'll be back next week with some different guests, and I'll be back the week after that with Happy Ron. Thank you, Happy Ron, for being here, and everyone else who's been here. And Ricky, I'm going to leave the last word to you.
Okay. Thank you all for sticking with us for the length of this episode. But it wouldn't be the same without you. So let's hope we all turn up next week. Okay. Thank you.